So today I'm going to be doing a mashup review. I've got 3 books that I'm going to talk about in this video. These are actually the first 3 books I finished in 2019. So yeah, I'm going to do my mashup review of these 3. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is The Hazel Wood by Melissa Albert. This is the first book that I finished in 2019. This is a debut novel, I believe, and it's the first in the series. And this is about a girl named Alice who is always on the road with her mom. They're constantly moving from place to place, trying to run away from this bad luck and that they seem to have, although we're not really told what the bad luck is. But they move around quite a bit. And Alice's grandmother is the author of a book of dark fairy tales called Tales from the Hinterland. And one day Alice comes home and finds that her mother has been kidnapped from a character who claims to be from the hinterland. Alice is left with a message from her mom that tells her to stay away from the Hazelwood, which is her grandmother's estate. But of course, Alice doesn't listen. She ends up teaming up with this kid from her school named Finch, and together they try to find the Hazelwood and get her mom back. So that's pretty much what this is about. As far as my thoughts on this, I did enjoy the first half of the book. I feel the book is kind of split into, like, the first half is more urban fantasy. It reads kind of like a contemporary, and there's this mystery element involved. So the first half reads more like a contemporary, and the second half is more like fairy tale fantasy. And surprisingly, I actually enjoyed the first half of this book a lot more than the second half, which is surprising if you've been on my channel for a while and you know that I love fantasy and I'm not a big fan of contemporary. So that was kind of surprising, but I think the reason for that is I like the mystery element that's in the first half of the book. I like that element to it, and so I think that's one of the reasons why I liked the first half. And plus, I feel like the second half is more whimsical and more Alice in Wonderland-esque. And so I think maybe that's why I didn't like it as much. So I'm not a big fan of Alice in Wonderland. I actually didn't like it. So that might be why I didn't really enjoy the second half all that much. I will say parts of the second half gets pretty confusing as well. There's some things that start to get confusing in this book. I also didn't really care about any of the characters in this. I know a lot of people have had issues with Alice, and I've heard a lot of people don't like Alice, and I don't really care about her either way. I mean, I don't hate her as a character, but I didn't find her interesting at all. So I really didn't care about her character. I didn't care about any of the characters really in this one. Really, it was just the plot that kept me going and wanting to see how the mystery in here unfolded. I will say the ending felt kind of rushed, and everything happened pretty quickly towards the end, and seemed like everything wrapped up really, quickly and like kind of nice and neat and everything. I will say this one is a pretty self-contained book. I know that this is supposed to be the first in a series, but it reads as a standalone, and I don't think I'll continue with the series. I'll probably leave it with just this, because you can read this really as a standalone. The way it wraps up, there's no cliffhanger endings. Everything has closure, and so you can pretty much read this as a standalone, which I am going to do because I don't plan on continuing with the series. This I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's okay, I just didn't love it enough to want to continue with this series. I will say part of it though did remind me of Once Upon a Time, just because of some of the things that we learned in this story and about Alice and the hinterland. It kind of reminded me of Once Upon a Time. So if you've seen that show and you've read this book, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. But overall, it was a pretty decent first book. I know a lot of people either fall on one side of the fence or the other with this. They either love it or they hate it. I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I loved the first half, and then the second half kind of lost me. So the next book that I finished in January is A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. This is the second book in the Song of Ice and Fire series. And this one I can't really explain or review without giving spoilers to the first book, Game of Thrones. So if you haven't read that and you don't want to be spoiled, I would suggest skipping to my last review. I'll leave timestamps down below. You can skip to the next review if you want to. So, with that being said, you are forewarned. If you don't want to be spoiled, skip now or leave now. So, A Clash of Kings takes place after the events in Game of Thrones. So, Robert Baratheon is dead, and Joffrey has killed Ned Stark, which I hated. His death still got me. And so now everyone pretty much wants to claim the throne and say they're a king. Ned's son Robb is claiming himself as king of the North, and then Renly and Stannis are both vying for the throne as well, since they're both Baratheons. And Renly actually found out that Joffrey is actually not Robert's son. He is the son of Cersei and Jaime Lannister, the incest twins. And so he's not the rightful king. And so he kind of sends out a letter to pretty much everyone saying that Joffrey is Cersei and Jaime's son, and he's not Robert's son, so he's not really king. So he's trying to claim the throne. And of course Stannis is also trying to claim the throne. And so here's where we get A Clash of Kings. So there's a lot of war and fighting and politics going on in here. And there's a lot of scheming and people dying. So I really enjoyed this. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. There are some parts in here that are kind of slow and boring. There's some chapters I don't care about, but I think that's an issue that you're going to run into when you have multiple point of views. So we get to see a whole bunch of different characters in here from their perspective, and so some of them are more interesting than others. Tyrion, I love his character. He's full of schemes as well, and I don't fully trust him. I'm like, you're always up to something, and I don't 100% trust you. I'm kind of suspicious of you, but I like his character. I don't really like any of the Lannisters, but he's probably the only Lannister that I like. Like, Cersei, Jaime, Joffrey, all of them can just die. Like, I'm waiting for them to die. But Tyrion is the only one that, he's the only Lannister that I actually like. Still suspicious of him, but I like him. Dany, I wish we got to see more of her in here. Like I said, she's one of my favorite characters, and we only get a couple chapters with her point of view. We actually don't see her. The first time we see her is like, I think around 250 pages in is when we see her. So I really wish she was in this more. I wish we got to see more from her perspective, but hopefully we'll get more of her in the next book. I also felt more sympathetic to Sansa in this one, because in the first book, Game of Thrones, I did not like Sansa. I thought she was a brat, and I did not like her character. But I was a lot more sympathetic to her in this one, and that's mainly because of Joffrey, I think, because of his abuse towards her and what she has to go through. I'm like, I can be sympathetic for her. Joffrey, like, someone needs to smack that kid. Okay, so after I finished A Clash of Kings, I started watching the second season of the show. And I've only watched the first episode so far, but I saw the first episode and there's a scene where, I forget what Joffrey says, but he says something to his mother and Cersei smacks him, and I was like, yes, finally someone smacks that kid. Like, she should have done it way before now. Like, if I was his mama, I would be, I'm waiting for his death. Like, he is the first person I really, really want to see die. And then, Arya, I like how Arya has, these prayers at night. So all the people who've done stuff to her or her family or whatever, she basically says their name at night as like a silent prayer for their demise and destruction. I will say the characters in here are so compelling to read about. Whether you love them or hate them, they are so interesting to read about. And so I always feel like that really makes a story and that really makes a book. Especially when you have huge, long books like these. Like, if I'm going to spend all this time with a huge book like this, I better find the characters pretty darn interesting, because the plot is not going to be enough to get me through huge books like this. So really, characters are everything. They really make or break a story, I think. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I really got for Clash of Kings. I can't really say too much more without getting into any spoilers. So that's it for this one. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Jewel by Amy Ewing. And this is the book that I picked out of my TBR jar to read for January. And I'm glad I did. I feel like sometimes my TBR jar knows what I need to read when I need to read it. Because I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. So this is a dystopian novel, and our main character's name is Violet. This is set in a world where the country is separated by different groups or classes. There's the royals at the top that hold all the power, of course. And then the marsh, which is where Violet is from. She's from the marsh, and girls from the marsh are basically used as surrogates to bear children for the royal families. They have no choice in the matter. Basically, at a certain age or a certain point, they get tested to see if they would be a good surrogate, and if so, they get taken to these facilities where they are prepped to be sold to different royal families that will buy them and basically force them to carry a child for them. Like I said, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. But it is, your basic dystopian story where it's like, those in power are corrupt or evil or whatever, and you have a small group that's like trying to rebel against them and overthrow things. So it's your basic dystopian novel. I still enjoyed it. It took me a while though before I really got into it. It wasn't until I was about 130 pages in. That's when things kind of pick up. I'll say Violet, her character, her actions sometimes annoyed the heck out of me because I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, no, use your brain. I don't want to spoil anything, but some things she does, I wanted to smack her. I'll also say there is a romance in this, but it doesn't happen till later on in the second half of the book. The first half of the book, there really isn't any romance in here, which I liked. I wish they would have kept it that way because we got to focus more on her friendships with her lady-in-waiting and her best friend Raven. And I like that. I wish, we could have gotten more of that. Because I don't think every novel has to have a romance. And so I enjoyed just seeing some of the friendships that she had. I will say I think the romance in here is more of kind of another device to kind of move the plot along and, make the characters do certain things which has certain consequences and outcomes. So I think it was used more for the plot to move along the plot. And it was also insta-love, which I can't stand insta-love. So there's that. But at least I will say the insta-love is not as bad as some other books. And then towards the end, things pick up even more. We are told even more about the royals and some of the things that they're doing, and a little bit more about what actually happens to the surrogates after they have the baby. And so we do learn a bit more, and things kind of get crazy towards the end. And there's a cliffhanger ending. So I definitely plan to pick up the second book and get to it pretty soon. So overall, I enjoyed this. I gave it, I believe, a 4 out of 5 stars. And I can't wait to pick up the next book and see where it goes and finish the series. This is a series I do want to finish, hopefully this month. That's it for this video, you guys. That's a mashup review of some of the books that I read at the beginning of this month. Of course, by the time this video goes up, I will have read more books. So definitely look for my January wrap up at the end of this month. But yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts on them were. I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye!